Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly current affairs session of APTI Plus Academy for Civil Services. So in today's video we are going to cover the articles that appeared in news in the third week of October. So let's get started. Our first topic is BATHOU religion. So we all know that the next census in India is scheduled for 2027, right? And this census will be conducted in two phases and it will be the first digital census in India. Very important to note. Okay, and it will also include an enumeration of castes for the first time since 1931. Okay, enumeration of castes. So these two things are new. This will happen for the first time. Okay, now how is it related to the topic? Basically, India's upcoming census that is going to be held in 2027. Okay, it grants Bathouism, which is the indigenous faith of Assam's Bodo community, as a separate religion code. And now this would be a major step, of course, towards recognizing India's indigenous spiritual diversity, right? So if we talk about this particular religion called Bathouism, Bathouism is an indigenous nature-centric monotheistic faith of the Bodos. Okay, and in this religion, people, the Bodo community, they worship Buarai Bathau or Sibarai. Sibarai is referred to as the supreme creator. Very important to note. Sibarai is referred to as the supreme creator. Okay, and this particular religion is based on 5 elements which are referred to as Pancha Tattva, okay, just like Hinduism: air, fire, earth, water and sky. Now, there is a plant called Sijau plant. So, this particular Sijau plant, it symbolizes divinity and immortality, encircled by 5 bamboo knots, which denotes 5 stages of life, that are birth, marriage, sorrow, happiness and death. Very important. The bamboo knots, okay, birth, marriage, sorrow, happiness and death. And it rejects, very important to note, that it rejects idol worship. Okay, it rejects idol worship and it reveres nature as divine. Okay. Now this is going to be very significant because for the first time the recognition of Bathouism as a separate religion, okay, here as an indigenous faith. So it validates the identity because it distinguishes Bathouism from the mainstream religions like Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, etc. Okay, then it preserves culture because it protects the unique Bodo rituals and traditions. It also enables accurate data because this aids in targeted welfare and resource allocation, and this could be done this time because from the voters, okay, number of voters, we can understand that yes, these are the number of people from Bodo community, and that is why we need to frame like welfare schemes for them, particularly targeted schemes, and also allocate resources for them. Okay, now this recognition, census recognition, it supports Article 25 and Article 29, which is freedom of religion and cultural preservation. So Article 25, we all know that it guarantees fundamental right to freedom of religion, right? And if we talk about Article 26, it is the freedom to manage religious affairs, and it is a fundamental right under Part 3 of the Constitution. Okay, so guaranteed rights, which is every religious denomination or section thereof has the right to establish and maintain religious and charitable institutions, manage its own affairs in matters of religion, own and acquire movable and immovable property, administer such property in accordance with the law. Now, these rights are not absolute, of course, because they are subject to public order, morality and health, right? So, the recognition of Bathouism as a separate religion, as a religious code in the census, it definitely upholds the rights and supports Article 25 and Article 29. We discussed about Article 25. If we talk about Article 29, it protects cultural and educational rights of the minorities, right? So, definitely this is going to be protected, supported by the recognition. If we talk about the other significance, it boosts pride, it gives a better representation and advocacy, and it also sets a precedent because it paves the way for other tribal faiths like the Sarna Dharma. Okay, it keeps appearing in news, Sarna Dharma. You should read about it. These are the subsidiary topics that branches out from a particular main topic. Now, if you talk about the challenges of the indigenous faiths in India, of course, lack of recognition is one issue. Okay, misclassification under other. Okay, there's an umbrella term called other, and all these different faiths are clubbed under it. So that is another issue, which is a misclassification. Okay, then cultural assimilation and data gaps in policy, of course, because there is something referred to as Sanskritization, that is other like faiths and religion, especially of the tribal community, they are all like merged within the Hinduism. So this is called Sanskritization. So definitely assimilation is an issue, and homogenization. Okay, pressures from dominant faiths like Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, etc. So it's important to recognize other tribal faiths, of course, to promote cultural preservation and then strengthen the legal safeguards and ensure community participation. So we can say that in conclusion, the BATHOU religion code is a landmark in protecting India's indigenous heritage, because this reaffirms that diversity and inclusion are at the heart of India's democratic ethos. These are the words that you need to mention while you are writing your mains answers. Okay, very important. Democratic ethos. Moving to the next topic, We Rise, empowering women entrepreneurs. So, Niti Aayog's Women Entrepreneurship Platform, which is referred to as WEP, okay, it has launched the We Rise Women Entrepreneurs Reimagining Inclusive and Sustainable Enterprises. Okay, so We Rise refers to women entrepreneurs. Okay, reimagining inclusive and sustainable enterprises. Okay, so this was launched by the Women Entrepreneurship Platform. Okay, and in collaboration with the DP World, and this promotes women-led economic empowerment. So firstly, we need to talk about WEP, or Women Entrepreneurship Platform. Okay, it was established in the year 2017, and it is a one-stop digital platform for women entrepreneurs, and it is built on Ichha Shakti or aspiration, Gyan Shakti or knowledge, and Karma Shakti or action. Okay, so these are the three pillars, the framework. Okay, and Women Entrepreneurship Platform, which is an initiative of Niti Aayog, it basically became a public-private partnership in 2022, and it engages 90,000 plus women and 47 plus partners. Basically, it focuses on aspects like finance, okay, market linkages, when we are talking about women entrepreneurs, skilling, mentorship, legal aid, and business development. These are the aspects that are focused by this particular Women Entrepreneurship Platform. Now, if we talk about the We Rise initiative, which was launched by the WEP recently, okay, so it was launched in partnership in collaboration with DP World, which is a logistics company, okay, under the award to reward framework. And We Rise focuses on what? It focuses on mentorship, Okay, it capacity building of women. Okay, global market access, because it connects the Indian enterprises with international players like Bharat Mart, then Dubai. Okay, trade facilitation is another thing, because it tries to leverage DP World's logistics network, of course, for seamless export operations. And finally, scale support, because it tries to provide resources to expand women-led business globally. It is very significant because this particular We Rise initiative, it embodies the vision of women-led development. Okay, very important. You can quote this in your mains examination: women-led development, and it drives inclusive growth, and it supports Viksit Bharat at 2047 through global opportunities for Indian women entrepreneurs. Moving to the next topic, TUVALU. TUVALU is the newest member of the IUCN, that is the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Okay, so this particular question can appear in prelims examination. And finally, you need to know about the location of Tuvalu from geography point of view, because the countries and the places that appear in news, they are often asked in geography from map pointing perspective in UPSC prelims. So if we talk about Tuvalu, it lies in the West Central Pacific Ocean between Kiribati in the north and Fiji in the south, as you can see in this map. Okay, it is the fourth smallest country globally. Please write in the comment section which is the smallest country in the world. Okay, it has only 26 kilometers area in size. And if we talk about the topography, it has low-lying islands, and the maximum elevation is 4.1 meter, so it is highly vulnerable. Okay, and vulnerable to what? Vulnerable to sea level rise, climate change, etc. Okay, and among the world's smallest population, of course, after the Vatican City. And if we talk about the capital, the name of the capital is Funafuti. Okay, the economy is basically subsistence and based on farming, fishing, and remittances from overseas workers. Okay, and recently Tuvalu became the 90th state member of the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, and that is why it is very significant to know about this particular country. Moving to the next topic, 2025 Global MPI, Climate Change as Poverty Multiplier. So recently the 2025 Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, or MPI, this was released. Okay, it reveals that the world's poorest are most vulnerable to climate shocks, and nearly all the impoverished people in South Asia, they are facing at least one major climate related hazard. In the first place, we need to know about MPI, that is the Multidimensional Poverty Index. It is released by whom? By the United Nations Development Program, or UNDP, and Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, or OPHI, Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. Please note it down, because in UPSC prelims this kind of questions always appear. Okay, now this particular index, referred to as the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, this basically measures poverty across 3 dimensions. Okay, what are the dimensions? You need to know about the dimensions of it, definitely. Again, a question can appear in prelims from this: health, then is education, and then standard of living. Okay, and these are the 3 dimensions, but it has 10 indicators, right? And a person is multi-dimensionally poor if deprived in at least 1/3 of these indicators, if he or she doesn't have a good health, good education, and standard of living. So these are the aspects. Now, if we talk about the 2025 findings, what are these? Around 1.1 billion people in 112 countries, they live in acute poverty, and out of these 584 million are children. 887 million poor people face at least one climate hazard, 651 million face 2 or more hazards, and 309 million face triple or quadruple shocks. If we talk about South Asia particularly, 380 million people from South Asia, and if we talk about Sub-Saharan Africa, 344 million are worst affected regions. Now, these facts and figures and data and statistics, these are extremely important for your mains examination, and even in UPSC prelims, some kind of questions appear. Okay. Now, why South Asia is highly vulnerable? Because of the geographic and climatic exposure to heat waves, floods, and air pollution. Okay. Also, there's a huge livelihood dependence on climate sensitive sectors like agriculture, low adaptive capacity because limited savings is there, poor housing, weak social safety nets, no security, right? How climate change deepens this poverty? Firstly, through, if we talk about health, then the major culprits are malnutrition and diseases, spread of diseases. These two affect health. If we talk about education, school dropout. School dropout is an issue due to disasters. Okay. Due to disasters. And finally, living standards because damage to housing, water, sanitation, power, assets. These are the issues. If we talk about India, particularly, India 415 million, they have been lifted out of poverty between 2005 to 21. Okay, poverty ratio fell from 29.17% to 11.28%. There are a lot of schemes like Ayushman Bharat, Poshan Abhiyan, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Jal Jeevan Mission, PM Ujjwala Yojana, Manrega, etc. Okay. And Supreme Court has also recognized the climate resilience as a fundamental right under Article 21 and Article 14. These are extremely important, and that is why very much significant. Okay. Now, if we talk about the 2025 multidimensional poverty index, the global multidimensional poverty index, it underscores that climate change is a multiplier of poverty. Okay, and that is why there is an urgent need for integrated action to build climate resilient and inclusive development in vulnerable regions, especially in South Asia. Right? For example, what is meant by climate resilient? For example, if we talk about climate resilient infrastructure, that happens in Japan, right? Similarly, if we talk about health, education, and other aspects also, we need to make sure that all these aspects, they do not get affected only because of climate change. For example, if there's flood and there's too much of earthquake, and that is why, or flash flood, that is why a lot of people are dying, there's a spread of diseases, or there's school dropout. So we need to find solutions that are climate resilient. Moving to the next topic, India's first indigenous antibiotic, which is referred to as NAFITHROMYCIN. Okay, so India has developed its first indigenously discovered antibiotic, NAFITHROMYCIN, and this marks a major milestone in India's healthcare innovation and self-reliance, of course. Okay, now if we talk about NAFITHROMYCIN particularly, okay, so the trade name is McNaf. Okay, and it is a next generation macrolide antibiotic. Macrolide antibiotic. What are macrolide antibiotics? These are basically antibiotics, okay, that are drugs that are used to treat various bacterial infections, which includes respiratory, skin, and sexually transmitted infections. Okay, they basically work by inhibiting bacterial protein synthesis and prevents bacteria from growing and multiplying. For instance, azithromycin, okay, then clarithromycin, erythromycin. These are all prescribed for those penicillin allergies, right? And these are all referred to as macrolides antibiotics, and NAFITHROMYCIN is also a macrolide antibiotic. So if we talk about this particular NAFITHROMYCIN, it is developed and clinically validated entirely in India, okay, with the help of BIRAC. We all know that BIRAC, it stands for Biotechnology Industry Research Assistant Council. It is a government company, basically a public sector enterprise, which was set up by the Indian government's Department of Biotechnology, or DBT, okay, and it functions as an interface agency for the biotech sector. It is classified as a Section 8 not-for-profit public sector enterprise, and it is registered under the Indian Companies Act, and it was established in 2012. Important things to note. Okay, so it operates as an interface agency for the Department of Biotechnology that comes under the Ministry of Science and Technology. So with the support of BIRAC, it has been developed and tested entirely in India. And if we talk about the use of NAFITHROMYCIN, it is basically used to treat community acquired bacterial pneumonia, or CABP. Community acquired bacterial pneumonia. Okay, effectively, and it is also effective against multiple drug resistant pathogens. There are like pathogens that have become resistant to a lot of drugs, but this particular nafithromycin works on them. Very important to note. And no new antibiotic in its class has been developed worldwide in over last 30 years. So it is a very significant development, and it is beneficial for patients with cancer or uncontrolled diabetes. If we talk about AMR or antimicrobial resistance, so we all know that it occurs when the pathogens evolve and they have developed resistance against the medicines, right? So even if you are trying taking the same antibiotic again and again, now those pathogens have become resistant to it and there's no effect on it. And it happens because of accelerated or overuse or misuse of antibiotics in humans, animals and agriculture, and it leads to untreatable infections, okay, and finally to higher mortality and complications in surgeries or chemotherapy. And AMR has been referred to as what? A silent pandemic. Doctors prescribe it mindlessly, and even over the counter medicines taken by the people, even if it is a slight fever or something, okay. So, and it is AMR is one of the top 10 global threats, and it has been designated so by the World Health Organization. Now, if we talk about nafithromycin, of course, it boosts India's Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat through indigenous pharma innovation, and it also provides a powerful tool against AMR and respiratory infections. It further bridges healthcare gaps, and it improves the pneumonia treatment outcomes. And of course, it marks global scientific recognition because it is the first microlide class innovation in decades. Of course, it carries export and economic potential as well, and it strengthens India's image as the pharmacy of the world. Very, very important to note. Pharmacy of the world. Okay, notes will be provided with this particular video, so download that note and you can read all about it. So in essence, we can say that nafithromycin, it symbolizes India's rise from a generic drug hub to a global innovator in particularly antibiotic discovery and the in the fight against AMR or antimicrobial resistance. Moving to the next topic, Elephant Census 2025. So recently, the Synchronous All India Elephant Estimation, or SAIEE, okay, it is referred to as what? Synchronous All India Elephant Estimation. The Synchronous All India Elephant Estimation 2021 to 25, released in October 2025, it estimates what? India's wild elephant population, and right now India's wild elephant population is 22,446. Okay, and this particular estimation is or a survey particularly is conducted by the Union Environment Ministry and the Wildlife Institute of India, WII. Okay, and this particular survey highlights successful conservation efforts alongside rising human-elephant conflicts. Now, if we talk about the elephant distribution between 2021 to 2025 survey particularly, then in Western Ghats, as we can see, there is 53% of the elephants are there. Okay, 11,934 elephants are there in the Western Ghat areas, and it covers states like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Maharashtra, etc. Okay, and then in the north eastern region, if we talk about 29% of the population, 6,559. Okay, and it covers states like Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya and Mizoram, then Shivalik Hills, of course, and the Gangetic Plains at 2,062, and 9% it covers states like Uttarakhand, UP, Bihar and West Bengal, and then finally Central India and Eastern Ghats at 1,891. Okay, and it covers states like Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, etc. If we talk about the emerging trends, then Chhattisgarh, of course, there has been a 6% 6% rise due to migration from Jharkhand and Odisha. Assam, of course, highest population but severe conflict from deforestation. Highest population of elephant. Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, of course, new herds have been spotted in tigers reserves, and this shows what? Habitat expansion. Now, there are a lot of challenges that elephants face, and that are like habitat loss. First is the habitat loss, habitat fragmentation. Then human animal conflict is there, that is another issue. Then unnatural deaths, of course, and then infrastructure deaths, of course, because of the rail lines, power lines, etc. And movement into new states, it also creates fresh conflict zones. So migration stress is also there. Migration stress. Okay, now what are the different government initiatives, okay, conservation measures that have been taken by the government? First is the Project Elephant, 1992 Project Elephant. It in this, like, 32 reserves are there across 14 states only because of this particular project. Elephant corridors, 150 elephant corridors have been identified, and Gaj Yatra 2017, then tech integration like the GIS mapping, then Project Suraksha app, which was launched in 2024, then GPS collars on 250 elephants. These are there. Then legal protection have been given to elephants because they belong to what? Schedule 1. Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and they also belong to CITES Appendix 1, conservation. So of course they cannot be hunted, okay, traded, etc. Regional cooperation is also there because there is a joint protection with Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Myanmar, etc. So these are the things that are already happening to conserve elephants across the world. An important question that can appear from this particular topic is the like distribution of elephants, wild elephants in India. Okay, 53% in Western Ghats, then Northeast 29%, 9% in Shivalik Gangetic area, and then 8% in Central Eastern area. So the trend is important and you need to know about this. Next topic is green crackers. So because of Diwali, green crackers were in news because on 15th October 2025, the Supreme Court eased its year-long ban on fireworks in Delhi NCR region, and it permitted the sale and use of certified green crackers during Deepavali, and this was under strict timing and monitoring conditions, of course. But here we need to know what are green crackers. Green crackers are eco-friendly fireworks, and it is developed by CSIR and NERI. Okay. Now, if we talk about CSIR, CSIR stands for Council of Scientific Industrial Research, okay, and it basically covers the spectrum of science and technology, like from oceanography to geophysics to everything, okay. And if we talk about NERI, NERI is another an initiative of, we can say, CSIR only. And NERI is National Environmental Engineering Research Institution. It is basically a lab of the CSIR. It is a research institute under the Government of India, and it basically focuses on environmental science and engineering, etc. Okay, and focuses on environmental science and engineering, which includes water supply, pollution control, public health, etc. Headquarters is in Nagpur, and it has also zonal laboratories across of other states. So the CSRI and NERI, its lab, they have developed the green crackers. And if we talk about green crackers, they are eco-friendly as mentioned earlier. So they do not emit anything. Is it true? No, they emit, but in less quantity. Okay, so 25 to 40% less pollutants, okay, and they do not use certain banned chemicals such as barium, such as nitrate, lithium, arsenic, lead, etc. They are certified by PESO, and they are identified by QR code labels. Okay, now PESO stands for Petroleum and Explosive Safety Organization. Basically, it is a government department in India, and it regulates the safety of hazardous substances like petroleum, compressed gases, and explosives. It is a nodal agency, and it ensures safety, manufacturing, the storage and transportation of various substances, and it operates under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. These are very important from prelims perspective, and that is why we are discussing. Okay, it administers acts such as Explosives Act 1884, then the Inflammable Substances Act 1952, etc. Please note things down. So here, if we talk about green crackers, they are certified by PESO, important to note, and they are identified if they have QR like labels on it, and then only you can identify them. If we talk about the industry scenario, before we like discuss about that, if we talk about the green cracker types of green crackers, they are SWAS, star and SUFFLE. If we talk about SWAS, it emits water vapor to suppress the dust. If we talk about star, it reduces nitrogen oxides, and it also like reduces particulate matter like PM 2.5, PM 10, etc. by 35 to 40%. And finally, if we talk about SUFFLE, it basically limits the aluminium content, and this cuts sound and smoke. Okay. Now finally, if we talk about the industry scenario, 6,000 crore market is there in India in total, and out of this there are 2,000 crore turnover from green crackers only, and green crackers are like growing quite significantly. Okay, and India's like has a very bad AQI levels in Delhi especially, and despite those regulations and during the Diwali, we all know that the AQI, it exceeds 200, which is referred to as a very poor category. Now there are a lot of issues right now, even after the introduction of green crackers in the market. For instance, fake certification and misuse of the QR codes is there. Then there is limited emission impact, because it is leads to reduction only by 30 to 40%, are not enough to offset the festival pollution spikes, right? Then manufacturing constraints, because only 35% of licensed units, mainly in the area of Shivakasi, they have adopted green formulations. And of course, there is a huge economic impact, because there has been 30% drop in small scale production and job losses in Shivakasi after the transition to green crackers. Now the Supreme Court has allowed green crackers and use at like particular timings during the Diwali, and of course the sale of these crackers online is completely like banned, and barium salts, these are all banned. Okay, and of course nationwide campaigns are going on since 2019, and this was expanded in 2024 also for label literacy, like how to buy green crackers, like if they have like proper labels then only buy it, and all these initiatives are undergoing. Moving to the next topic, State of Finance for Forest 2025. Okay, so the State of Finance for Forest 2025 report, it basically reveals that there's a massive financial gap in protection and restoring global forests, and this particular report was titled as Unlock, Unleash. Okay, so the report says that without urgent action, the world will fall short of achieving the 2030 climate and biodiversity goals under the Rio Conventions. Now, what are the key findings of the global state of forest finance? The first one is massive funding gap, because the current global investment is $84 billion as of 2023. But what is the requirement? $300 billion by 2030. So there is a shortfall of around $216 billion, which is not enough if we want to restore and conserve the forests across the world. Okay, then there is also an imbalance in funding sources, because the public finance, it accounts for around 91%. Okay, 91% of the total forest investment, and the private sector is investing less than 9%. Okay, less than 9%, and this shows that there is weak participation from the private sector. Okay, then also there is a difference between domestic and international finance, because domestic government spending is 96%, and if we talk about international public finance, it is only 4%, which is $2.9 billion. So these are the data that you can cite in your mains answers. Now, if we talk about India's role and commitment, then India's expenditure in 2023 was $7.1 billion. So India's expenditure was the third highest globally. The first one was China. China was followed by USA and then India. Okay. And India also received $81 million in 2023, and it is among the top 15 recipients. So India's leadership, of course, it underscores strong domestic commitment to forest and biodiversity conservation. So what we need right now, basically we need nature-based solutions, or that is referred to as NBS. Okay, so forests are central to climate mitigation, biodiversity, land restoration, etc. And if we talk about our targets of nature-based solutions, and we need to expand it by 1 billion hectares by 2030. I mean, we need to expand our forests by 1 billion hectares by 2030. Okay, and 1.8 billion hectares by 2050. And like, what are the six like key nature-based solutions that we can take for the, especially for the like tropical forest countries? First one is avoid deforestation. Okay, then reforest, agroforestry, then protect areas, peatland protection, and then sustainable forest management. These are the things that we need to focus upon. And if we finally talk about the like way forward, then of course we need to triple our investments by 2030. We need to have increased international support, especially from the developed nations. We need to mobilize the private capital, because as we have seen that only 9%, less than 9% is spent by the private sector for the conservation and protection of forests. Then we also need to align our policies, because for that we need to eliminate deforestation linked subsidies. Okay, the sectors which are getting subsidies, and their products are based on what? Deforestation, and still they're getting the subsidies from the government. So that is a like irony, that is a paradox, and we need to definitely move away from that and integrate forests into trade and land use policies. Empower indigenous and local communities, because of course they protect it, and it ensures direct finance and legal recognition also of their like land rights. And we also need to improve transparency and credibility of the carbon credit systems, that is the selling and buying of carbon credits. We all know that of like a company that is polluting a lot in developed country, if it buys carbon credits, then it has to, it gets the right to like do like make some emissions, but against that it has to build a renewable, like eco-friendly or a renewable friendly project, set up a project in a developing country. So that is also there. So we all can say that the State of Finance for Forest 2025 report, it exposes that the world's like chronic underinvestment in forests right now, and this is, forests are, we all know, very much like important for climate stability and biodiversity, and we need to bridge the 2016 $216 billion annual gap, and mobilize the private finance also, and align our global economic policies to our conservation goals. Okay. Next topic is 2025 Global Hunger Index, very important for prelims. Also, you can like use it in main census also. So, the 2025 Global Hunger Index, it basically reveals that global progress against hunger has stalled. It has stalled since when? 2016, because 56 countries are likely to miss the 2030 low hunger target. Right now, India, like in 2025, it ranked 102, very important to note, and it has been categorized in a very like serious category. It falls under very serious category, mainly due to child malnutrition. Okay, then conflict, climate change, economic pressures, these are all basically driving the crisis of hunger across the world. Particularly if we talk about Global Hunger Index, it is a peer-reviewed annual report, and it measures hunger at global, regional and national levels. Okay, and very important to note, who publishes the Global Hunger Index? Worldwide. The organization Concern Worldwide, along with World Hunger Life. These two, they basically like publish the Global Hunger Index. And what are the measures, like the 3 dimensions of hunger? First is the inadequate food supply, then child undernutrition, and then child mortality. So these are the measures of hunger that are like used to determine the status of global hunger in the index. So inadequate like food supply, child undernutrition and child mortality. Very, very important to note. These are the 3 parameters. Okay, and what are the indicators? Undernourishment, that is the population with insufficient calories. Then child stunting, okay, that is the percentage of children who are like below 5 years of age with low height for age. Very important to note the differences between these. Child wasting, if you talk about, okay, like the percentage of children below the age 5 with low weight for height ratio. So this is another thing. So if we talk about stunting, it is height for age. Height for age. If you talk about wasting, it is low weight for height. Low weight for height. Okay. And finally, if we talk about child mortality, deaths under age 5. Like children who are dying and who are under age 5. Hunger severity levels, we talk about low, moderate, serious, alarming and extremely alarming are the levels. Okay. We find about the if we talk about the key findings, global trends, if we talk about, then of course there has been like stagnation, because the GHI score, it is 18.3 in 2025, and in 2016 it was 19. So of course there's minimal improvement. Okay. And 56 countries, they are projected to miss the low hunger target, which is a serious thing. It is an alarming thing. Okay. And finally, what are the things that are leading to global hunger crisis? Of course, conflicts and like instability. We all know what is happening in Yemen, in Gaza, South Sudan, okay, and destruction of infrastructure and the use of hunger as weapon. Climate change is another issue, because droughts and floods, they harm the smallholder farmers disproportionately. And of course, after like the COVID-19 and then rising food fuel costs, all these they they make the long-term policies quite weak. Okay. And there are some progress stories also. For example, Tajikistan, it has reduced from alarming to near like low hunger through sustained policy and investment. Similarly, if we talk about South Asia, India's National Food Security Act, then the Poshan Abhiyan. Bangladesh is also empowering women in agriculture innovations, and Nepal is also has targeted nutrition and food programs. Okay, so we can say yes, the report shows that zero hunger by 2030 is at risk globally, because we might not be able to meet that goal, and for the to meet it, we need strong international commitment, okay, to address conflict, climate change and equality. And there are certain like successful examples like India, Tajikistan, Bangladesh, because these countries illustrate with an effective policy and political will, targeted investment in ending hunger is actually achievable. Last topic of the session, okay, India elected co-chair of United Nations Global Geospatial Information Management for Asia and the Pacific, or UNGGIMAP. Okay, so Global Geospatial Information Management for Asia and the Pacific. Okay, so India, represented by the Surveyor General, was elected as the co-chair of UNGGIMAP for a 3-year term from 2025 to 2028. This marks India's rising leadership in geospatial governance, of course, and particularly in the Asia Pacific region. Now, India will guide, of course, regional strategies. It will promote data-driven governance, and it also support initiatives like PM Gati Shakti and sustainable digital transformation. Now, if we talk about this particular United Nations Global Geospatial Information Management for Asia and Pacific, it is basically the regional committee of the United Nations Global Geospatial Information Management for Asia Pacific. Okay, so basically, as we can see that this is particularly for the Asia Pacific region. It is a regional committee, okay, of the United Nations, and the purpose is basically to set strategic decisions and directions and make joint decisions basically on geospatial information use and management. It was established in the year 2012, and it basically tries to align with global UN GGIM framework. Okay, now if we talk about the membership, 56 countries are members of it, and economies, especially from the Asia Pacific region. If we talk about the Secretariat, then United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, it serves as basically the Secretariat since 2018. Now, what is the mandate of this particular committee? basically to maximize economic, social and environmental benefits of the geospatial data. Okay, for example, the GIS, then the GPS, these are the remote sensing. Okay, so the data that is generated using these, we need to leverage that for what? For economic, social and environmental benefits. Then we also need to promote regional cooperation, capacity building and shared solution. And as mentioned earlier, like if we talk about geospatial information, of course it is any data that is linked to the location on earth, right? Geospatial. It can include the coordinates, the longitudes and the latitudes. Then it also attributes to data like population, then land use, infrastructure, etc. Okay, and components as mentioned earlier, GIS, GPS, remote sensing, these are the various components, because if we talk about geographical information systems or GIS, it captures, manages and visualizes geospatial data. Similarly, if we talk about GPS, so satellite based location specific and timing information is provided by the GPS, and remote sensing, satellite or aerial imagery of the Earth's surface. So this data can be used for various purposes. Like what? Like urban planning, okay, population, traffic, infrastructure management, logistics, optimizing routes for efficiency, environmental monitoring, like we can monitor whether there is deforestation going on or not, climate change, wildlife trafficking, disaster management like flood mapping, emergency coordination, real estate and like site selection, risk assessment. All these things can be done using geospatial information, and that is the committee based on. Now, if we talk about India's geospatial initiatives, we have a lot. For example, National Geospatial Policy. Okay. National Geospatial Policy 2022, it basically liberalizes the data acquisition and access of geospatial data, aims for high resolution mapping across the country. Then we have Digital India, PM Gati Shakti. Okay, we also hosted the second United Nations World Geospatial Information Congress. This was in 2022 actually, in the city of Hyderabad. So all these highlights India's commitment to international collaboration. So right now India's membership and election to the co-chair of this particular committee, it strengthens India's regional leadership in geospatial governance, and this also enhances policy alignment with United Nations frameworks, because we need what? Sustainable development. Also we need to have data driven decision making, not blindly we can take decisions now, because in this particular digital world, for every aspect, be it infrastructure, disaster management, environmental monitoring, etc. And of course, it also promotes India's digital and technological diplomacy in Asia Pacific region. Okay, so with this we come to an end of this session. Thank you so much.